So some of the things we were thinking about adding is like, I think Autumn, was this NAMI quorum the one that you found?
Yeah, so I kind of took a look around at other like states' NAMI websites to see, what they had there in terms of advocacy, and I found this website. I'm pretty sure it's like NAMI National, but it has kind of like quick links to, write your policymakers, and then it has a list of all of the bills and other stuff that NAMI itself as an organization supports and backs. So I thought this might be a cool link to maybe put on the website to have that information too.
So it's accessible to anybody, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool that like you can sign petitions and like write to senators. So I think that might be cool to add to the website.
Can we add our own content, or is it just they control the content?
I think it's managed by like the National NAMI organization.
Yeah.
So it's a national web page. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mark, it shouldn't be hard to add a link from our website to this one.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we were thinking about like adding what our priorities were. And I think we were talking about like our charges or like our priorities for 2020 to add that to the webpage once we get that finalized. And like adding things to allow others to get involved in like when we add those. So, and then we were talking about the survey, and we did so much of it. So I'm wondering, like, would it be beneficial to put it on the webpage for others to view?
Yeah, I hope that they had, but I think we could. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we put that there. And then I wasn't sure. I feel like you should have like a little bio and like what we do so people can get to know you as well, since you're the head.
In fact, it'd be nice to have everybody who wants to have a bio can be on there. So I think that's a really great personal touch because, and not something like a resume, but something that kind of says why we're here, right?
Yeah, something quick like what got you involved in NAMI, why you want to do advocacy, stuff like that. We're kind of thinking. And Autumn, feel free to jump in if I'm forgetting anything. And then we were talking about that PowerPoint that you normally do for new people. I wasn't sure if maybe that'd be beneficial to add on there. Just it gives like a good background about advocacy. And then I wasn't sure if you wanted to maybe record your presentation and add that to that. That way you don't have to do it every time. However, it's also personal, so it's whatever. It's just a thought.
Great.
And then lastly, it was adding like a calendar type thing with meeting info and like subscribing it so people can click on it and add it to their calendars. So that's all we had for website. Does anyone have any thoughts or concerns or anything that we're forgetting?
That's great.
What about the story jams? Could they be linked on here too?
Story jam?
These are stories, the stories that people tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, are those located somewhere else on the website right now, or do we not post those?
I missed that, Kara, Autumn.
Are those posted somewhere else on the website?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Mark, do you need to get special permission from them? Have you already done waivers and everything?
We have a very complete consent form that says every time we use their story, we'll get consent separately for them. Yeah, so that's not a problem. We can get that. Okay. If they don't want to do it, of course, they won't be on there.
So those were just some of our ideas, and I don't know like what our next steps would be. Like, how often do they update the webpage?
I think it's updated really frequently. And because they put the newsletter on the web page as well.
Yeah.
So I did something. Go ahead and finish, and then I'll share what I did. That's very similar, and it's great stuff here.
And then we were kind of talking about the podcasts, and we were thinking we could add that as a link to the website once we get it up and going. And we weren't sure about topics, and I think this might be something we could table until after we talk about everything else, but like what kind of topics you would want, what guest speakers we would want to have there, how often, just like the whole logistics of it, we weren't too sure, but we think it'll be relatively easy to set one up if that's still the route we want to do.
Yeah. And the interview format is really low cost. I mean, yeah, if there's some editing, I mean, but even if you do it carefully, you can cut the editing.
And I figured that's something I could just like Google how to do, because I'm sure everyone's doing it now.
Yeah, for sure. And I reached out to, I'm on another committee for a pharmacy organization that has a podcast. So I reached out to the person in charge of that. So we could talk about, you know, what the process is for how they post their podcast. So we can maybe just kind of steal that instead of recreating the wheel.
Now, Autumn, I can't remember the social media. What they have? We have a Twitter, right?
Right. Yeah. Twitter, Facebook, and one other. Forget.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Autumn, was there anything you had for social media?
No, I just think like once we get like events on the calendar or something, we can maybe share like when those are coming up, and then also like once we get the podcast up and rolling, we would definitely want to share when like new podcast episodes are out.
Yeah. And our links to the social media sites on the webpage, I guess I don't remember looking for those.
Yes, I know they are, because they have the little images. Yeah.
Cool. And then we were kind of talking about Slack, and I know me and Autumn kind of struggle with using Slack. I wasn't sure your thoughts on like GroupMe, or if you've ever used GroupMe before.
I'm willing to. I think we ought to talk about it, because I'm not really satisfied with Slack.
Yeah. I can't figure it out. I don't know why. It just like doesn't click with me.
Yeah.
Just not intuitive at all.
But GroupMe is like pretty user friendly, and
Great.
I've used it for a while, and me and Autumn both have, and have had no problems with it. So that could be something to try out.
That's a great recommendation, because I'm stymied by it.
Yeah, and I think that might be, you know, we kind of talked about what the purpose of Slack was last time, and I think that might be an easier way for, you know, once we pare down who actually wants to be involved in the advocacy work, an easier way for us to communicate than using Slack, because we can just get GroupMe, like the app, on our phones.
Yeah.
So it might just be an easier way.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about that offline. I mean, in another meeting, because I think it is a great. I just use it now as a repository for things that come up, and it's okay for that, but I don't. It doesn't really do it for collaboration for me.
Yeah.
So let's talk about GroupMe and
see.
Yeah.
All right. And then lastly, we were just talking about the newsletter. How often does it come out? We couldn't really figure
Okay. Let me share you my thing after talking to Maria, because this is exactly. I mean, we're right on target. So let me share Well, what happened here? Share screen. Okay. Okay. Here, do you see this memo here? I'll go up the top. I talked this out, so you can see this, right?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Maria is our communications person. And so the newsletter is distributed by MailChimp every first Thursday. So she wants the newsletter material by the third Thursday. Now, because calendars are weird, thanks to Pope Gregory, it's not always the third Thursday. It's the two weeks before the first Thursday. So sometimes that's the fourth Thursday and sometimes it's the third, but let's not get bogged down in reality here. So that's that schedule. Did somebody else come in?
Oh, that's just me getting on my
Oh.
computer.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So those are the deadlines. The audience is not just Menominee members. It's like they have a whole mailing list. So it's more than just the members. And then we ought to have a reminder of our meetings, which is the first and third Thursdays, and the drop-in day on Tuesday. So that's the calendar idea, right? Autumn. Yeah.
Yeah, so to have like our meetings and then I know you're talking about other meetings that come up in the community.
Exactly. Yeah. So the monthly update of any advocacy activities and the regular meetings related to advocacy, like the Ann Arbor City Council, County Commission, CMH meetings, Millage Advisory. Not many people are going to want to go those, but I mean, honestly, it's the only place where they exist. So it would be really useful to have that on the website, because you can just say, go to the website and they'll tell you how to get to the city council meeting. And then any ad hoc planning meetings related to mental health. So that we're in the same totally in the same ballpark as your stuff, as your ideas. But so the only thing I'm adding is the dates for the newsletter. Then the social media, the audience is the general community, and they do get a lot of hits. They get, for an announcement, they'll get 50 or so hits, which that's pretty big for us. We could announce and promote the Story Jam events, for telling stories, the community meetings of any import, the election alerts for advocacy issues, and other important events like webinars, national and local. There's a ton of really cool webinars that if you're a geek like me, you love to sit in or at least check them out. If you don't, so that's the social media. And then the third thing was the advocacy digest, and you had that too. And it's really in the planning stages, but the audience is our advocacy leadership team, which is us, and the agency partners. And there's about 40 agency partners. And we don't have deadlines. It's just a digest of articles and reports. And then we could also do Facebook Live events. But all that stuff, like the podcast, is in planning stage. So I think we can rely on Maria to do. We basically can use as much of her time as we can before she says, "I got too much to do. Do this yourself." So it's a kind of if we have an interactive component on the blogs and the podcast, then we have to have somebody moderating so we don't get some weird comments and how that goes. So that was all the only thing. That was my thing. So I'll stop.
Mark, I missed the last meeting. What's going to be the content of the podcast?
Well, that's up for grabs, right? Carol Ann?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of what we weren't really sure what direction we wanted to take. And so we thought we'd ask you all what you guys thought.
Oh, okay.
it's pretty easy to do interviews, because you could do the mental health court judge, you could do the sheriff, and you just then really all you have to do is ask the questions and let them do all the work. What it really gets down to work is if somebody wants to do a special thing that is their, kind of the bee in their bonnet, and that's possibility too, but that takes more composition and work. What do you
Mhm.
think, Autumn? I mean, have you had any experience with podcasts?
Not really. I'm not on, for the other organization I talked about, I'm not on the podcast like subcommittee. But from what it seems like is, they kind of came up with a script to like introduce every episode. And then, you have your questions that you ask whoever your guest is, and then you go through and edit it however it needs to be done. But I think one thing we'll have to think about is if we want to transcribe the podcast as well and like post that with the podcast.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Does NAMI have an organization to host podcasts in mind? Do you know nationally or around the country?
Not that I know of. You mean the National NAMI?
Right.
Not that I know of. Most people just, it's not been that organized. You can transcribe for like $1 a minute. And if it's 60 minutes, $60 is not that big a deal and that would allow hearing impaired people and
Right.
yeah, that would be really important.
Is that something that Maria would follow up on?
Well, I would hate to see us. Have anybody ever done any transcribing? It is a devilish. Oh my goodness. What do you think about it? I'd rather pay somebody, to tell you the truth.
Very difficult.
I would pay for it out of my own pocket. If you said if I have to do it, that's why I'd do it. I'd say, give me my weekend and here, take $60. Yeah, but that's not going to break the bank. Since our advocacy is pretty, it doesn't have expenses like the other things. I think we could probably get that by the chancellor of the exchequer. Actually, I happen to be the treasurer, so I suppose I'm the chancellor of the exchequer. It's great. So how can we divide this up? What do you have some ideas about how you want to divide it up? I mean, I just think we ought to actually. I'm going to write something for the December newsletter, and I would like to put in your plan and say, anyone who wants to join us, call, get in contact with me, and we can maybe get some more people involved.
Yeah, I think it might be good to have like a point person for, for each, I'll say like each episode, have someone who will be the point person to contact whoever we're interviewing, and then someone to be the point person for editing, and then someone to be the point person to create whatever social media content we want posted on the website or on the social media.
Yeah, so if I have something that should go on social media, I can call up, somebody and say, here, X, I want this on and they could have a form or something and have it figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's right. So why don't we put it on why don't we announce this as something we want to do, and then have people call from the newsletter and see if we get responses. And we could also put it on social media, and then that could be part of our next meeting,
Yeah.
or January, depending on where the third Thursday. I have no idea for the third Thursday.
It's the 17th.
Yeah, the
Oh,
17th.
okay. As long as it's not the 24th or something. So we could probably squeeze in another meeting, but who knows? We'll that may be not enough time. We might want to do that in January. What do you think?
I think we should probably do that in January. 'Cause
Okay.
people are gonna
Okay,
consume
great.
holidays.
Yeah, maybe people's new Year's resolutions will be to get involved in advocacy. So that
That's
will
right. Lose weight,
be.
lose weight, do a NAMI advocacy.
So
Yeah.
a question is, what will be part of the January meeting? All of these topics or just the podcast topic?
Oh, good point.
Carol Ann and
Oh,
Autumn?
what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think we could, if we can get some other people who want to help kind of run the podcast, I think we could talk about, how we're gonna implement that, and we can all talk as a group of like who we want our first guest to be.
Do you already know people that are doing some kind of video production of some kind?
Not video, just audio.
We do have a video and audio guy. His name is, I forget. So he came out of the millage. So we do have somebody we can try to pull in. I'll find out that.
Yeah, I guess the question would be just a general open-ended question that we're thinking of setting up a podcast that might go out maybe once a week. What do you guys think? Once, a couple times a month?
I feel like once a week might be a little too difficult. I feel like we could maybe start with like monthly.
Yeah.
And see how that goes.
Until we get people up to speed on how
Yeah.
it's gonna run.
Yeah, we've got to, even if we get new people, we've got to orient them and.
Well, on the technical side, we need to find out what would host the podcast. I mean, can we get it in the Apple Podcasts and or Android, whatever people use? So it would be searchable.
Hmm.
Do you listen to podcasts, Mark?
Yeah, and I use NPR and Stitcher, and you do search them, and but they're all aligned. I mean, I don't know how like some podcasts, like Wondery is a big podcast producer, and all of their stuff is available to NPR. NPR One, it's called. So somehow there's a sharing relationship that I don't quite get.
Yeah, so I plan on figuring all of that out when I talk to my person on like how they share and disseminate the podcast.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
So you've got what you need between now and January for this.
Okay. I think so.
Right.
Great. I think we can start right away with reporting on the newsletter about what we're doing. That I can do because I write that for the board anyway, and it wouldn't be a big deal. But the real thing, the big job would be the Advocacy Digest if we want to go there, because that is more oriented toward advocacy, and I don't think we're quite. That's one of these things that we kind of talked about but never really planned out.
In what way, Mark?
Well, it's sort of we have a kind of image that it would be like the Reader's Digest, where you have you could review certain articles or meetings and say, this is like a 200 word
Right.
summary of an article in JAMA or the Journal of American Medical Association or other places. You know, here's a website. Here's a webinar that on these neurobiology of prejudice. You know, which is there's really some great stuff out there.
And this is what you thought Slack would be good for.
Well, I was just kind of using Slack as a storage compartment to classify things and store stuff there. But the digest you could kind of write up less than 200 words saying this is what it does, this is what it's all about. Check it out if you're interested, and then you have a link. So it would be electronic, and it would maybe encourage. I was thinking it might encourage people to explore. You know.
Well, maybe that for now would be better as a section or a link in the website.
Yeah, good point.
One, because that way you don't have to recreate a whole lot.
Right. You're right. And then when it gets to be big enough, if it really gets to be big enough, it can branch off.
It can have its own life.
Yeah. Maria is also in MailChimp. So there's a whole email marketing thing, which is how the newsletter goes out. But also we can use email marketing for, story projects and special meetings. And, we can say, here's what's on in this month. Here's the things we added into the website for advocacy. And we could just list them and then send people off to look at the website. The problem is nobody goes to the website to do this stuff. It's a nice repository for things, but you've got to kind of reach out and grab them.
But if it links in from the newsletter going out with MailChimp, that would be good. Yeah,
and we could do a special MailChimp thing for advocacy every once in a while if we wanted to.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So that I would be great if we could work on podcasts and get the newsletter going and some of the announcing the special events that we're going to have through the MailChimp. I think that's like a lot. I don't want to overkill ourselves.
Yeah, I think focusing on getting the podcast up and ready and filling out the content for the newsletter.
Yeah.
Should probably be the immediate priorities as the short-term goal.
What do you guys think? I see one nod, one scratch.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay, Barb's nodding.
What does Barbara think? Barbara's been quiet.
Yeah, I just think we should move full steam ahead.
Say what? I missed that, Barb.
I said I just think we should move full steam ahead.
Yeah, but not too. I think we got these chunks seem doable to me.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, great. Let's do it. I'll write up some minutes and so we can kind of make sure that our understanding is all right on this.
Okay, and this will be so we'll just do updates at the next meeting in 2 weeks and then expect a little more formal content in January.
Yeah. So Carol Ann and Autumn you're working on the podcast, and I have some ideas about content. I'm always stewing around about content, so and interviews. So I can supply some ideas for that.
Okay.
I'll take care of the newsletter, and then we'll talk about, see how it looks. But the big item on the newsletter is having an advocacy tab where we would put that thing that you found from national, the advocacy thing, and all the other stuff that we might think is useful.
Yeah.
Can you can send us your sheet? Was it your sheet, Autumn, or
Uh,
was it
yeah,
Carol
I
Ann?
mean-
It was Carol Ann's.
yeah.
I think it was mine. I can share the link.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so that's that. There's a couple of story jams that have come up. Story jam is a combination of a focus group. One of the problems when teaching people how to tell their advocacy stories is that you have to have an ask. I mean, really centered around asking somebody for something. And if they don't know, if people don't know what they're asking for, the story doesn't have a focus. So we combine a focus group to really help people through discussion on a certain kind of topic, figure out what the asks are, and then we develop those asks, and they come back and get trained how to tell their story. Now it's all remote, of course, but we used to do it in person. So the areas, the asking areas, one has come up. Somebody really had a bad experience with their primary care physician and their mental health condition, and the lack of training and understanding that primary care physicians have about. They treat in kind of discriminatory ways people who have mental health conditions because they don't know enough. And so what one of the focus groups could be, tell us your experiences. Let's talk about, in focus group, talk about your experiences with primary care physicians and your mental health condition. And we can see what people say about it. We don't have to make up the ask. We just get them to tell us. And we would put this announcement out via social media on Tuesday and Thursday. Here's a Zoom connections, come and we're going to have a focus group on this, and we'll tell, then there'll be another session. We'll tell you how to tell your story. So it's very straightforward. And the other area that has come up are the restrictions around HIPAA, which is the Health Insurance Privacy Act. That's not the right name, but it's close. And then FERPA, which is the Federal Educational Something Privacy Act. So they both have to do with privacy of mental health conditions. They both are national laws. The penalties are really draconian. And a lot of people, there's a lot of churning and turmoil around these two things because they are, even though there is some wiggle room for how to do it, people in big health institutions or educational institutions don't want to risk the penalties for mismanagement of it. So they tend to be really, and the results are really very overly secretive, keeping information from family members specifically, so that you have people who care a lot about a person with a mental health condition but can't get any information and don't know how to approach the problem. And so, have any of you had experience with that? HIPAA rules or FERPA?
Well,
Not really.
HIPAA's always been a problem with prisoners. If you're trying to get help for somebody who's in prison, you can't get information. And that's always an excuse.
Yeah, it's a way of, HIPAA tends to be a way of taking the easy way out and getting in the way.
I think I was talking over Barbara.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to say that there's always, when I hear talk about this, is the concern about privacy for individuals who do not want their family members to know anything. And I don't know how to really.
It tends to be a real interesting divide between people who support the person with a mental health condition and the people with mental health conditions. And it really, part of the education is to explain these two viewpoints to the other side so that they don't, so that they can kind of modulate their anger toward and focus towards some solutions. Like you can get consent. I mean, anybody can give consent to share information, either through FERPA or HIPAA. So there's ways around it. It's just people are told by institutions, we can't do it, and it tends to be obstructive, unnecessarily obstructive.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I don't think it's a regular practice to ask people for permission or consent to communicate with family members, and that
Yeah.
it should be.
Do you see this as a story jam topic or a like a presentation, bringing someone in from a few institutions to talk about how to handle it?
Yeah, it could be both. I'd like to get some stories. I'd like to get stories, and you'd have to do the people separately. You'd have to do story jams separate for the people with mental health conditions, separate from the people who are the supporters of those people, the parents and friends, because you're going to get you don't want the focus group to be argumentative. You want it to be a safe space where people can talk about things.
Mm-hmm.
And then develop the asks, develop the stories, and then you can have, and I think the stories would then help us focus experts to come in and say how to do it, like an educational program. At least that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it.
And the thing in Michigan too is like the mental health hygiene laws add like another layer of like a barrier of communication, because as a pharmacist, like I deal with, I have to abide by HIPAA. But even like in Michigan, there's even like further restrictions when dealing with patients who are either being seen by a mental health provider in the outpatient setting, or even, when they're admitted to the hospital.
And tell me about hygiene. How does that work with, why do they say hygiene?
Oh, just like the mental health hygiene law. So it's basically like all the protections that, if you were under the care of someone for a mental disorder or admitted to the hospital, like the mental health hygiene law protects certain rights for you as a patient.
Okay.
Is it possible your mental health hygiene law refers to a body of law, or I don't know of any law that's called a mental hygiene law?
I don't know. I would have to look it up, but
I see New York has a mental health hygiene law, but there's only the mental health code in Michigan.
okay, it might be the mental health code then.
We can, but that's great. Okay, cool. I was just looking it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, the mental health
Mental health
code.
Yeah, it also comes up in civil commitments. They're called alternative treatment orders, ATOs, AOTs.
Yep.
And you can't believe how different people's perspectives are. If you're a mental health person with a mental health condition, alternative treatment orders are like, you can get a lot of really angry people talking about them. And then, but for parents and spouses, and they think it's great.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think this is, NAMI is a structural fault in the organization where we represent both sides, and we have to have we should be able to develop a way to really talk about these things. And to do that, you've got to get some, I think you have to get some stories, because talking about the law, it tends to be very dry and clinical and doesn't make any sense to people. So stories are the way, I think, the way to go. So those two story jams could take us through the spring of next year, really, because they're fairly complicated things. So that would be the kind of thing we'd put on our social media, announcing and recruiting people for them, and of course then the stories, once you get people's consent, and they can either written form or audio or video presentations could be on the website, and of course unless they give consent. So that really, so what I want to do is for us to also think about other things that we want to do story jams about. The present primary care physicians is a great one as well, because there's a lot of problems with people with mental health conditions, and just the normal, your everyday health clinician, doctors and nurses, who sometimes are really very judgmental. So
I 100% agree.
yeah, so turn up at the story jam. So that, okay, so that was, so the point is, in 2021, if we do these two things, that would be a lot. And if we can think of one other, that would take us through the whole year. That would be like our goals for 2021 for advocacy for these issues. And it's by way of creating, and out of that could come education sessions and podcasts, discussions, and all kinds of stuff. It would really be a way, it would be neat to coordinate those things. So think about other things that you would like to do, Pat, like, for example, prisoners, mental health, and how, families, for example, another great topic would be families of people in prison and their experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, we could probably get some, I don't work directly with prisoners anymore, since I'm not practicing with clients directly, but I'm sure through the American Friends Service,
Yeah.
we can get some contacts, possible people to reach
Yeah.
out. So why not save that for start working on that, but have that be the last part of the year?
Okay.
So the first part, the story jams through the spring, would be primary care physicians.
Mm-hmm.
And the HIPAA-FERPA Privacy Act divide.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
three.
Privacy acts. Yeah, I think that's right. I'm just saying, also be thinking about other things that really strike your fancy as something that would be really useful. We don't have to do the prisoners. I just threw that out,
Mark,
yeah, Anise.
I think we should do something on race and ethnicity, and
Of course.
yeah, and maybe access to mental health, or I don't, something.
Yeah, agreed. That might come up with the primary care physicians too, because I found in the prison work that a lot of the docs, the psychologists and psychiatrists, were not native born and had a lot of hostility. They were just basically racist, and they just did not hear or sort of see the Black patients they were dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So just sort of like, it's
pretty amazing.
common. People know that they don't give Black people the same amount of pain medicine as they do white people, and
Right.
a lot of it's anecdotal, but I did see a lot of instances of it.
Yeah.
It was almost like they were afraid. I had a number of prisoners tell me that the doctors were like afraid to be in the same room with them, or they would not touch them when they examined them.
Mm.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that should definitely be a thread.
Yeah, for sure. And all of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Excellent point. God, that's a great point.
Thank you, Anise.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, that's enough because that's overwhelming. Yikes. Mm. Okay, great. So I want to the other if I can move on, can I move on?
Yeah.
We're doing this thing on digital equity. I've got these 7 university students who are interviewing people at their high schools on how essentially what it's like to be have remote learning, because and it addresses the whole issue of digital equity because we have this enormous problem. How are we going to get diversity in our programs if we can't address inequitable distribution of digital resources and knowledge and all this stuff? So they're coming back with their interviews. They've got transcripts, and we're going to have transcripts and interviews, and we're having kind of discussions, 2 series of discussions about what they're revealing. And we have a person at the School of Information, Alicia Williamson, who is helping us. She's going to be looking at these and reading these interviews, and we're going to take it like the next step in 2021. That's one of our big strategic kind of things, I think, is how can NAMI accomplish some kind of digital equity. So that's just a report, but you'll be getting the information. And we're going to have more university students to pursue this next term, and Alicia's going to continue to work with us. So, and then the next topic. How are we doing on time? We're almost up. So the candidate survey, as you know, we're now working with the idea of came out of the review and the discussions that people thought it would be great to have a consortium of agencies that educated office holders about justice and health or social service issues. So we're working on that. A consortium would mean that we'd bring a lot of agencies together who were like our partners in the survey for candidates, and then identify some things that they would help us identify issues that we could educate office holders about, because nobody's educating office holders. And office holders like county commissioners, city councils, township supervisors, the prosecutors, the judges, and the police, the sheriff especially, they're all elected office holders. And when those guys change, everything changes. And you really need to have coming out of this candidate survey, people were saying, we need to have some way of taking this information and changing and really educating the office holders once they're in office.
Mark, who's working on that?
It's open. I mean, it's really open. Who's working on it?
Did you meet on Tuesday?
Hmm?
Did you meet on Tuesday with people who?
Yes, we did. Not Brenda. There's one other person that's really interested in that. But we've got some people that aren't in our current NAMI group, like Chuck Warpahosky, who did the millage, is interested, and our partners are really interested in that. And there's one, I can't remember, one person.
Well, can I just pass on some information?
Absolutely.
As part of the prisons and corrections section of the State Bar of Michigan, we did a seminar for new legislators on the prison system and the various issues. and just the budget from, A to Z. Because typically the average legislator doesn't know how the prisons operate or how much they cost the state. We did not get a good turnout. So my suggestion might be that this consortium of agencies each do like a 30-minute, 20 to 30-minute presentation on video, and make sure that gets provided to officers, and they can, office holders, that is. Because asking people to go somewhere or to sit down at a set time to do a Zoom meeting gets awfully hard.
Yeah, that's great. We're just now forming the consortium, so we're kind of early days with this. This is going to be a big project. It came out of the realization that the ecology people were so far more advanced than we were. They have been able to develop a serious local strategy with Ann Arbor with the A to Zero campaign for zero carbon emissions by 2030. I mean, they've got a consultant. The council has changed over. People are voting for this. I mean, the Ecology Center has mobilized people around issues that justice and service organizations haven't even come close to. And I know it's more complicated, but it's an attempt to really try to create an association of in local communities to get county commissioners, city councils, and the other people, judges, prosecutors, sheriffs, to have a voice with those people. So it's the same thing, but more local, Pat. It could be statewide, could be with legislators, but.
Well, it was just my practical example.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. So anybody who wants to join that, we're just in the early days of it. We're talking it up among our current partners. We had 6 partners besides Washtenaw Health Initiative to do the survey. So we're going to go with those guys first and then build partners, consortium from the other organizations. So, okay, so that's just kind of a news item. And we're going to announce this in the newsletter as well. So, and try to recruit people to get involved in that. So, this is a great meeting. Thank you all. Anybody have any other comments or concerns? Okay, Anise, I can't see your face, but.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, sweet.
Right.
All right.
How are the cats doing?
They're doing good. I lost one, but I have eyes on the other, so that's all that really matters.
On you see all these on Dodo, which is an animal channel. You see all this peculiar combinations of animals like dogs and cats and horses and ducks.
Yeah,
and
I follow them on Twitter.
Yeah, but you never see the ones that don't end up in this kind of euphoric relationship. The ones that get stepped on and bitten and you never see those.
I'm hoping that's not mine, but we'll see.
It's like on American Got Talent. You never see the really terrible auditions. Okay,
All
great.
right.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye,
Thanks
guys.
a lot for your work, and talk to you later.
Don't forget to get the minutes out.
I'll get what's that, Barb?
I just don't forget to get the notes.
Oh, no, I won't. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, talk to you later.
Okay.